for me, I am now qualified as a deck officer with my unlimited tickets. So I'm pretty much qualified to drive any ship, any size, anywhere in the world, which is quite nice. And it's very transferable.
Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of the pod. Of course, the sideways look at life at sea. Today's episode, we are following an amazing young lady called India Sims, otherwise known as India Rose Ocean. She's got millions of followers on her TikTok and Instagram accounts because she's taken part in one of the most challenging yacht races in the world, and she's also a qualified seafarer. So, Robert, that sounds amazing. How are you?
Yes, I'm not too bad, Helen. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, really good. Glad to be at episode 4 and glad to be talking about India Sims because she really is quite inspirational and she's got quite a good story to tell. I mean, just the fact that she took part in the Ocean Globe race in 2023, that race that I said, that around the world race, it's really quite a huge achievement for somebody so young and a fascinating story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to give too much away, but this race, it does involve very old techniques of sailing. They don't have the modern gadgets and electronics as India talks about. And I think what an amazing achievement to be able to do that, especially, at a young age as well, without all the mod cons, no mobile phones either.
Mobile phones.
Yeah,
I mean, how did she cope months
I
at
know.
sea with no way of contacting friends and
Exactly.
family? But she was one of the navigators on board that ship, and this is one of the reasons why Robert and I are obliquely talking about it because she had to use low-tech ways, traditional ways of navigating the vessel across the world's oceans, which is a huge challenge in itself. And
A
there was
huge challenge. Yeah.
huge challenge, yeah, absolutely. And there were one or two sticky situations. Again, I won't kind of give too much away, but one or two sticky situations which we go into, which the team had to pull together and to be able to finish the race. So listen out for those. But there's almost 2 parts to this pod, isn't there? Because as I mentioned, India is also a qualified seafarer. She has worked as a cadet with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, and this is a cohort of members at Nautilus International that we've been supporting for many years, isn't it, Robert?
Yes, it absolutely is, Helen. The RFA, the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, I think it's probably one of the lesser known parts of the merchant navy, but also of defence as well, because they are merchant seafarers. They're not armed forces, and yet they do support the Royal Navy and are critical to the UK's naval capabilities. And they make up a large chunk of Nautilus members as well.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And this is one of the services that I've been desperate to kind of shine a light on for quite some time. And given that kind of national defense position that they do and support that they give, it's been wildly difficult for me to kind of get this access. So knowing that and then coming across India online and seeing the content that she's giving, it's just so joyous, and it shines a real light on what it's like to work in the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. So I highly recommend that our viewers, our listeners, check out the show notes and follow along with her as well. And we won't give any more away. We'll just get straight into the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Nautilus Pod. Today I'm with India Sims, otherwise known as India Rose Ocean. India is a deck officer of the Watch Unlimited who, at just 23 years old, joined the Spirit of Adelaide team in the Ocean Globe Race 2023. India trained with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary and also volunteers for Tall Ships Youth Trust in her spare time. Her TikTok account has 47,000 followers and her content has been viewed millions of times. Welcome to the Nautilus Pod, India.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, and thank you for agreeing to speak with us. Could you start perhaps by describing to our viewers and our listeners what inspired you to pursue a career in maritime and Is it something you've always wanted to do?
No, actually, I mean, I've always been close to the water. I grew up on the south coast, and I used to sail in my spare time, but it was really just a hobby for me. I enjoyed it, but never thought that the water, being at sea, is somewhere where I would work. And then at school, teachers pushed us towards university. All my friends were going to university, so naturally, I thought I was going to go to university. And then in my sixth form years, stumbled across a charity, the Tall Ships Youth Trust, who do voyages for mostly kids from disadvantaged backgrounds, but they offer some paid trips as well. And I spent a week doing my Gold Duke of Edinburgh expedition with them, getting involved with chart work, learning about voyage systems, and getting involved on deck, getting stuck in, and I loved it. So I started thinking more and more about what I would do after school, what sort of careers there could be at sea. And then, yeah, stumbled across the deck cadetship program, and it seemed perfect for me. So yeah, that's kind of what kicked off my career.
So I love this. You've said that twice now you've stumbled across these great opportunities. How did you actually find out about that charity? Because I reckon there's a lot of other sixth formers and kids of about the same age who might also love to stumble across an opportunity like that. So how did you find out about them?
Exactly. And it's a shame because it's such a chance opportunity. It wasn't me directly, it was my friend who her sister had stumbled across it, and
Oh,
her
right.
sister had done an expedition with them, and so that's how she knew about it. And then she asked me to join her in her small group. There were only 8 of us that did it, and obviously most people with the Duke of Edinburgh, they go off walking around the countryside for a few days. And that's kind of what you think about when you think of that program, the Duke of Edinburgh. But no, I did something completely different, and it really was just luck for me. And which is a shame because it's such a great opportunity to learn something a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's opened so many doors for you, hasn't it? Do you
Yeah.
have to be a part of the Duke of Edinburgh program to take advantage, or is there other ways in?
No, you can as a school. So it's mostly the school that will organize it. They get in touch with the organization, talk, and find something that suits the school and the charity. So there's even things like day trips. So you can just go down to Portsmouth for the day and go out around the Solent. And even in just that time, the kids learn so much. And it's not really, obviously, sailing is an important part of it, but it's more about the team building, putting yourself in slightly uncomfortable situations in a new environment, and working together with people that you might be at school with those people in your group, but you're not necessarily in the same class or the same year group. And it's about building relationships and confidence in a challenging environment. So it's really great
Yeah,
organization.
really good foundation, isn't it? And you said that that then led you to a cadetship. And you know what? Some people who are watching this or listening to this pod might not even understand or know what a cadetship is. Would you be able to explain that a little bit more for us?
Yes, absolutely. So a cadetship lasts about 3 years, and you can start it when I think you need to be about 17 and a half, so that when you do go to sea, you're 18 at that time. And it's broken down into several phases. You have 5 phases, 3 college phases where you study things like meteorology, cargo operations, maritime law, and it really is like being at school. It's more of a 9 till 5, 5 days a week training program. You do that for a
Right.
few months. And then you go off to sea and you get 12 months of sea time broken into 2 different sea phases. And obviously you're learning every day. You're getting stuck in with maintenance tasks out on deck, and you're up on the bridge, or if you're going down the deck route, or in the engine room if you're an engineer. And it's, yeah, great work experience. It's really hands-on, really practical, and you get a good qualification at the end of it. And you're paid throughout your training, which is really great. And yeah, I think it's a really great alternative for people if they don't want to go to university, or if they maybe went to university and still not sure what they're doing. then you can always go and do a cadetship as well at the end of that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing. And I think there's a few things inside there that people would like to hear more about. So first, you said you come out of it with a great qualification. That means you become a Merchant Navy officer or a Merchant Navy engineer. Is that correct? Is that the qualification that you come out with?
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
have it depends what program you've signed on to. But for me, I am now qualified as a deck officer with my unlimited tickets. So I'm pretty much qualified to drive any ship, any size, anywhere in the world, which is quite nice. And it's very transferable. You'll be with a certain company. As we said, I did my training with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, but it's an unlimited ticket. So if I wanted to go into the cruise industry or wanted to go to bulk carriers or container ships, you can do that as well, which is great.
That's very cool. It's very cool. And if I were a student and I knew there was an opportunity to do my study, my training fully paid, I reckon I would jump at the chance. So how does that come about? Is this the case for all cadets, and how do you find a fully paid training position?
Yeah, so you can, the amount that you get paid obviously depends on which company you're with.
Okay.
And typically the company will have on their website the application process, and you can either apply to an agency and then you get a sponsor through that agency, or you go directly to the company and apply for the cadetship program through them. So pay is very much determined by the company, and they then send you off to your various ships, wherever they are in the world.
Wow. A great opportunity for a young person to come out of education without a huge debt around their neck.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So we've mentioned there that you did your training with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. Some people might not have heard of them. Would you be able to give us a whistle-stop tour of who the Royal Fleet Auxiliary are?
Absolutely. So the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, also known as the RFA, it's a bit easier to say.
Mm-hmm.
The RFA work alongside the Royal Navy. So it's the auxiliary fleet. They are the ones that refuel, replenish the ships, the task force, the Royal Navy task force at sea. So they operate all over the world, and they could be involved in counter narcotics. They could be involved in mine hunting operations, in disaster relief. They really do all sorts. So it is a government-run service, and but we are a good group of seafarers. Or see, I'm not with the company anymore, but it's really interesting work. It's really interesting work.
It sounds really varied, and it sounds
Yeah,
quite serious as well. Those things that you just described, that's not just, a jaunt out on a yacht for a day's shipping or what have you. I mean, this is
yeah.
serious business, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so postings are typically 4 months long, so you can be asked to extend that time. You don't have to say yes, but it might suit you to do that. And then once you've done your 4 months, you get 3 months leave, and in your time off, you might have some courses that the company want to put you on. So that doesn't take up your leave, but it kind of gets added on to that time. And yeah, you can go all over the place. The ships, there's different types of ships as well. So you can be on tankers, on passenger vessels, all sorts. But it's a very unique fleet, because although it's working alongside the Royal Navy and you're part of the military, you're dealing with ammunition, you're doing warfare, things like gunnery exercises and training the Royal Navy Fleet Air Arms pilots, helicopter pilots, because see the
Wow.
airplanes have got flight deck. It's still Merchant Navy qualifications, so you can leave and go elsewhere as well. You're not
Wow.
limited to that
Yeah.
company.
That sounds
Yeah,
like a really well-rounded experience. And the fact that you come out with your Merchant Navy certification as well, stands you in good stead for a future career at sea, doesn't it? So,
yeah.
was there any specific about your experience there at the Royal Fleet Auxiliary that you think has prepared you for your future career in maritime?
Yes, definitely. I think the RFA in particular, they do navigation really, really well. Pilotage on the bridge of an RFA ship is very different to pilotage on pretty much any other ship
Why
outside of
is that?
the country. Typically there's a lot more people. I think I counted once, there were 15 people on the bridge, and it is very quiet. Everyone has their specific roles, and some would argue it's a bit excessive, but for training purposes, for me, it's really helped me out, and it's drawn my attention to things which I think are actually quite important, which maybe get brushed over a little bit in the merchant navy. And as I mentioned earlier, technology is changing, the nature of the industry and seafaring is changing, which in a way is a shame. You still do learn all of the old practices. You learn celestial navigation and dead reckoning and things like that during your cadetship. But practically, when you're on ship, all of that's it's really lost. Most ships don't have paper charts anymore, let alone sextants. So it is a lot of looking at the screens and just looking at numbers. And so the RFA was really good for kind of making us go over what we learned in our cadetships. And yeah, I think that's great.
Right, because the industry has been moving towards more digitalization in, at least the last 10 years, probably longer. We're starting to see, as you've said, a move to electronic charts, not using paper charts anymore, and probably starting to see more AI and other kind of newer technologies coming in as well, right? So it sounds to me like you quite enjoy maybe, can I say, romance of the old school way of navigating a ship?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people as well, when they think about they've always dreamed, it's like been a boyhood dream to go to sea, be a sailor, and then maybe if they haven't fully done their research and seen what it's like nowadays, it's a bit of a culture shock because it is quite admin based. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of health and safety, which is great. Health and safety is really great, but it's a very different job now to what it used to be back in the day. And the way that we navigate is very different. And I've just been on a sailing voyage, a long sailing voyage, and speaking to officers of the watch, a call up passing ships and asking for weather information. And a lot of them actually would say, oh, yeah, it's good weather, mom, nothing to worry about, all good. And actually, the good weather was no wind, and times where actually, as a sailor, we need wind. Back in the day, wind is crucial for keep the ships moving. So the nature of seafaring has really, really changed. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess that's inevitable in many ways, isn't it? Because as technology changes and the rest of the world changes, maritime industry, particularly your commercial shipping, I know RFA is not commercial, but your commercial shipping is going to be embracing those changes, and will other services such as the Navy and RFA.
And it is important, obviously, we're trying to meet this net zero target 2050, and all the technology is there, whether it's hydrogen ships, green ammonia, or the hybrid battery powered ships, or wind.
They're bringing wind back.
Wind
Hallelujah.
back, I know. I want to learn how to sail again. And I welcome that. It's a really, really good thing. And obviously training will change and adapt to the changing industry as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have mentioned this very long trip that you've just taken. I know. Yeah. Amazing. The Ocean Globe Race. I mean, that must have been so exciting when you found out that you were taking part. What made you apply for it in the first place?
So again, going back to the Tall Ships Youth Trust, back in 2021, I sailed with a skipper at that trust and talked to him about the cadetship. And it was more, I was volunteering as a watch leader on his boat and just general chat. And then, so he knew that I was studying celestial navigation and meteorology and all these important seafaring subjects, skills. And then I crossed paths with him again later in the year, and he had been asked to join a campaign for this race, the Ocean Globe Race, which is a fully retro race around the world, 27,500 miles it took us actually. And
wow.
No GPS, no AIS, no modern electronics, so no mobile phones. If you wanted to listen to music, it was cassette players.
Oh my God.
It was very old school. And nowadays, finding people that can do that, so that sort of sailing, it's very difficult. Obviously, all the professional sailors that go off and do that for a living, they've got all the software, tells them where to go, what to do, and So yeah, the celestial nav kind of gave me the edge, and he asked me to join that team, and the rest is history.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
The rest,
Exactly. So you said 27,000, was it 27,500 nautical
yeah,
miles? Oh
yes.
my goodness me. 27,500 nautical miles, a journey around the world, no modern equipment whatsoever. I mean, you must have had some pretty challenging moments, some hairy moments. What were
Yeah.
some of the most challenging things that you faced?
I think it's funny because obviously the conditions you experience, very tough conditions. If you know about the Clipper races, you know that they go through the Panama Canal. This was different to that. We went past the three Great Capes, so I'm Cape Horner,
Wow.
which is really really cool to say. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and obviously, the Southern Ocean brings some really tough conditions, very, very cold sea temperatures, gale force winds a lot of the time. Um, but actually, the physicality of it wasn't the most challenging thing. I think being in it's a team event, so there were 11 people on my boat. 10 of us were doing the whole route round, and then we had one person that was swapping each time, which actually we were the only team that had the same 10 people that stepped on the boat in Southampton get off the boat on the finish line, which I think that was our biggest achievement, that we managed to keep our cool. There were times when people clashed, obviously, but you get on with it. You have to get on with it. You can't just stop if you're tired, if you're cold. Everyone's tired, everyone's cold, everyone's wet, soaked through, and getting up and yeah, you're kind of in that watch system. You just got to keep going. That was probably the most challenging
Yeah. Yeah,
about it.
because I mean it's not a small yacht, it's a pretty sizable yacht, isn't it? And yet with 10 or 11 people on board, there's no privacy, is there?
Yeah, no privacy.
No privacy.
And actually, so it was, yeah, I'd say for ocean sailing, that type of racing, it was quite a small yacht, and we were one of the smallest yachts in the fleet. We're a 55-foot yacht.
Mhm.
And I was in a cabin, the aft cabin, with five other people, and actually the chief mate, Rinza, was 6'7",
Oh
and
my,
his feet
what?
there was about this much distance between the end of his feet and the bulkhead that you had to kind of squeeze
Oh my
past to get
God.
out. So it was quite cramped. Yeah.
6'7". I mean, that's
Uh,
madness. Why is that man on board a 55-foot
I
yacht?
know. Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
hilarious. Well, I did see one of the, I think it might have been YouTube or one of the videos that you did of the race where your team rescued a fisherman off the coast of Dakar. Dakar?
I
Dakar?
know.
Sorry about that. Um, I mean, what an experience there. And you know, you kind of watch your team and yourself because you're doing that ship to shore relay, aren't you, on the radio? And you kind of
Yeah.
watch you go through all the kind of possible scenarios. You know, is this somebody in distress? Could this be a piracy attack? You know, what is the situation here? Are there any vessels nearby who can assist? What are we
Yeah.
going to end up? You know, will this person be accepted ashore? All those type of things. How did you find that experience when you were going through it?
Yeah. It was obviously quite a nerve-wracking experience. I was obviously responsible for the navigation of the vessel and the safety of the crew, which comes under navigation, but I actually was also responsible. I was on board as the safety officer, which, see, as a deck officer, that's your role anyway, so it's quite an easy fit.
Mhm.
Um, but I had been speaking to some of the other skippers on other boats over the HF radio, and one in particular was in my ear a little bit about, oh, you are quite close to the coast there, you know, there is a piracy threat, so watch out. So actually at the time when that incident happened, we were all on deck. It was just before midday, and so it's watch changeover. We were all eating lunch, and we could see something just on the horizon, and we were thinking, is that a whale? What is that? It's an odd shape, and it's not disappearing. And then it was getting closer and closer, and yeah, it's quite terrifying seeing a longboat in those waters coming at you full speed. Um, and everything kind of raced through my head of all the possible scenarios. And at the time, I think we were 90 miles on the beam of Dakar. So what what a fisherman is doing out there.
That's a
One
long
man,
way out. For
it's
anybody who doesn't go to sea, that's a long way out, especially to be in a very small boat, right?
and
Yeah.
he didn't have any fishing gear in the
Mm.
boat. He had nothing
Mm.
in the boat, just some empty jerry cans. So, and didn't speak a word of English, didn't speak a word of French. So, because we had a French guy on board, he couldn't communicate with him. So we did realize there was no way we could have just left him, obviously. Yeah, we started the tow back to shore, and you're always thinking, well, what if it's a decoy? What if just over the horizon there's actually a group of other boats, or a boat with 3 or 4 guys in it? And yeah, I was on the radio. I think I was awake for about 30 hours in total, trying to organize the rescue, which, note to self, don't get in distress on on the coast of Africa. The MRCC wasn't too helpful.
MRCC,
Yeah,
for anybody who doesn't know what that acronym means.
the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, they weren't really wanting to get involved. And obviously the ships that I was speaking to, I had a lot of questions. Am I sure that it's not a piracy threat? And I can only be so certain. We did manage to get a tanker to come out and monitor the situation. They did go past with all their jets blasting water over the side, their hoses blasting water over. So kind of showing that they are wary of the situation, but it was nice to have them there. And then actually later on after that rescue, we dropped the guy off and proceeded back to continue on with the race. We had another boat come up to us with 3 guys this time, very aggressive, shouting at us.
Oh, wow.
Fortunately, left us alone after a while, but
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it
Because
was
that's obviously that's not on the first video. The first video
no,
stops when, the first chap is handed over and rescued.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and obviously we're a lot closer to the coast then. We were quite keen
Yes.
to get racing as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, nerve-wracking.
Very nerve-wracking. Yeah. But of course you had to kind of go to that person's aid. There is international laws, isn't there, and kind of common sense around the sea that if there is any vessel in distress, that the nearest most, possible vessel for that rescue will come into its aid. Is it UN class, UNCLOS? It's one of the laws of the sea.
And
Yeah.
also we weren't anywhere near shipping lanes. He had a couple of empty jerry cans and was kind of waving the one that was actually
Mm,
attached to the engine, and it had hardly anything left in it. No
wow.
water, no food. So how long he would have lasted in those conditions? And
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
idea.
No, not a good sign. And so lucky that you guys were there and the other much, much larger ships were in the area to be able to support as well.
Well, actually, they weren't. So I managed to get them to divert and come over. Um,
Okay.
they weren't near us, actually. It took them a couple of hours to get to us. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, maybe that wasn't so obvious in the video because of the editing version. But if anybody listening to this wants to watch it, we'll put a link to that YouTube video into our show notes so that they can experience it through your eyes, through the video's eyes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very cool thing to watch. So you're on board this ship and you don't have any modern electronics or anything like that. How do you think that experience kind of enhanced your skills as a mariner?
Mm. I've definitely become hyper aware of my surroundings. That's a big thing that I've taken away from the situation. And how the environment affects the vessel in terms of, well, actually the equipment that we did have. So you could have boat speed. We had a little paddle wheel that calculates your speed through the water, but obviously you've got to know what the ocean currents are doing and what the tides are doing and how the wind affects the vessel, what your leeway is, which is obviously different on a ship to on a sailboat. It's a huge factor on a sailboat. And no gyro compasses, so we were using magnetic compasses. And then what's the variation and your deviation and everything? You're really paying attention just to get your course. Because with the celestial navigation, it's a great thing to practice and it's great, it does work really well, but particularly down in the Southern Ocean, you can go days, like almost a week with no sun, or the swell is so big that you don't get a horizon, so you can be sat 15-20 minutes waiting for a break in the clouds to match up with a break in the waves, and you can just get a sight, and then how accurate is that sight going to be? So yeah, it's really made me think about my surroundings a lot more. And obviously we're relying on the weather facts and the HF radio for weather information, which is a big thing. It can get quite dangerous down there, some big low pressure systems, the roaring forties and all that. So yeah, no, it was a huge challenge, and I've paid a lot more attention to the old school methods of doing things.
The elements, really, isn't it? Is what you're
Yeah,
describing. Yeah.
exactly. It's easy on a ship just to look at numbers and
Right.
not really think about how that affects what you're doing in your environment, and you're on a nice air-conditioned bridge with a nice view out the window, but that could be a simulator, a bit like cadet training nowadays. I think you're talking about doing more simulator training as opposed to being on ship, which has its positives. I think that's a really good thing. You can practice more of your emergency drills in a simulator, but you are very cut off from the outside world, the real environment.
Yeah. It makes me kind of think, if we were putting it into a land-based analogy, that maybe it's a difference between driving your lovely luxury car along a new highway to cycling, somewhere in a
Yeah,
city. Because if
exactly.
you're on your bicycle and you've got big cars and trucks coming towards you and pedestrians crossing and dogs and whatever, you have to be so much more aware. And yet if you're in your nice car,
Yeah,
not so
I think
much.
people just forget maybe the danger of the situation that you're in. It's very easy to just see dots on a screen, and it doesn't really mean anything. And actually, you need to really, take on board what that means. And
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
good.
So in our little pre-chat, you said that you were down at SeaWorks yesterday, which is an industry event, and you were talking to some school children about some of the opportunities with the charity, but also opportunities in career in the Merchant Navy. So what type of advice do you like to give young people interested in pursuing a career at sea?
Yeah, I'm such a big advocate for careers at sea. I think it provides so many opportunities, and there's so many different jobs. I mean, obviously, yeah, there's driving the ship. That's what I think a lot of people think. Oh yeah, there's people driving the ship, and you get to see the nice sunrises and sunsets. But there's so much more to it than just that. It's like a whole community on board. You've got the engineers that are keeping the ship going, and the cooks that are making sure that everyone's well fed. And there's so many different departments on board the ship. But there's also other industries if you want to go offshore, or if you're so yeah, in the oil and gas industry or anchor handling vessels. Again, there's just such a variety of careers. And I think make sure you do your research. It's an amazing lifestyle. You get so many opportunities, but you are working hard, and there are times where you're going to be missing holidays, like maybe Christmases and Easter, birthdays, but it's really what you make of it. And you kind of have a family within your crew, and you make the most of the crew that you're with. And I think, yeah, I obviously encourage people to look into careers at sea. And there's stuff online, there's more and more information online, and more influencers, actually, people posting on their Instagrams or on TikTok about it. So definitely have a scroll through of that and see what it's like. And and
Yeah,
talk to people,
talk to people.
yeah, everyone's so willing to answer questions. I know I've answered a lot of people's questions, whether it's about the RFA in particular or about cadetships, deck cadetships. Obviously, I can't really speak about engineering cadetships or ETOs or anything like that, because I've only experienced the deck program. But no, people are willing to talk about it and help others out. Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of really good programs here in the UK. We've got our Ambassadors at Sea program, which I believe is run by the Merchant Navy Training Board, and Nautilus also supports that, and a number of others, number of charities doing good works as we've been describing. But it can sometimes still feel a little bit hard to
Yeah.
find that information, can't it?
Yeah, no, I can. And like I didn't know anyone working in the industry, and I couldn't really ask my questions. I could go and look up ships' X accounts, Twitter accounts at the time, and try and see what they were up to. But I didn't really have anyone that could tell me exactly what was going on and what a day in the life looked like. So yeah, there is more information starting to be spread, and hopefully that continues and increases over the coming
Yeah,
years.
absolutely. And again, we'll put some links to some of those programs in the show notes and a
Mm.
link to our own website because we've got a whole cadet hub area. It's for people who are already in training, but there will be some information there for people who might be interested in joining training. So check out those links in the show notes
There
for
are
this.
activities like I know Sea Cadets. I didn't personally do Sea Cadets, but I know other cadets who are now qualified officers that did do Sea Cadets, which is more of an ongoing thing. Obviously, every week you go and get involved in recreational maritime sports, and you learn about the industry a little bit discipline training, and I think that's a good way as well. If you're young and interested in the maritime world, then it's a good way to get started.
It gives you a good introduction, doesn't it? It allows you to literally dip your toes, as it were,
Yeah.
in the water, right? You experience what it's like on board ship and you get some of those basic skills and training. Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good avenue into the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned there though as well social media and people posting content online, which is making it easier for young people who might be interested to get into training, but just people of all different stripes to learn about the maritime industry. And this is kind of one of the ways that we came to know you because your TikTok videos are absolutely amazing. And I particularly like the ones of life on board ship. They have literally been seen by millions of people. So what inspired you to first start doing them?
Yeah, well, I started TikTok ages ago, and I think I had like 30 followers, and those 30 followers were my friends, and really just posting fun videos. I remember I posted a video which was to do with a fitness challenge, which committed me to doing 30 days of a fitness challenge, which I didn't think much of, but the first video got a little bit of attention, so it kind of tied me into doing that challenge. And by the end of it, people were interested and wanted to know what I was doing next as a challenge. So I started doing a cooking challenge, and then that, I wouldn't say blew up, but yeah, gained even more attention.
It blew up. I mean, you got hundreds of thousands of views on some of those videos. So in my world, that's a blow up.
Yes. And this was all sort of COVID times. So
Right.
I was really, I think a lot of people were bored on their phones trying to find new activities to do at home. So posting videos online was that for me. And I did actually study film at school.
All right.
Really enjoyed,
Nice.
I really enjoyed that side of things. So in a way, it felt like this was giving me, yeah, going back to my roots a little bit in a different way, though,
Yeah.
a social media way.
And being creative as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, so when I finished that cooking challenge and people were sort of, well, what do you do now? And I was going back to work. I just finished a college phase of my cadetship, and the next thing for me was a sea phase. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I could show people a little bit about what I do when I'm on board ship. And yeah, and especially starting it when I was still in my cadetship, it was quite varied. Obviously, I had responsibilities on board, but I wasn't the sole person doing that job. I was being supervised. So actually, I could take a bit of time to film some things and yeah, and show people what we get up to.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know which are my favorite out of your time as a cadet, as an RFA cadet. What are the most popular videos, the type of content that people are most interested in?
Um, I think my most popular video actually is actually a packing video from when I'm at home and what I'm packing to take with me on ship. People like that one.
Yeah,
Uh,
Pack with Me. Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
yeah. And I did one about the ship shop.
Yep.
Because on
Yep.
a couple of different ships, I was running or co-running the ship shop, which I think was quite interesting for people to see that, yeah, actually, like, we are normal people. We have normal things as well. We're not completely detached. And actually running a ship shop and restocking when you go into port and the admin behind it, someone's got to do it. And
Someone's got to do it, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was an ancillary role for me. Obviously, usually I'm up on the bridge driving the ship, but in my spare time, why not run the ship shop? So
You're running the ship shop, and you also get to keep all the good stuff for yourself, or not
uh,
quite like that, but earmark it for
I can
yourself.
tell what I want.
Nice. What I wanted to know when I watched that video, I was like, why were you putting some of the goods into those big metal bins and storage bins? They're not bins, but storage
Yeah.
bins. Is there a reason for that?
More just somewhere where I can keep it. I could keep it in the shop, but
Right.
not have it. Obviously, we had the display shelves, but
Yes.
at the end of we never usually sold out completely of what was on the shelf. So at the end of the session, I'd kind of restock it from the bins that were underneath
Right.
underneath the shelves. So
Right. So it was purely just storage. My head was going, oh, is there rodents on board the ship? Or do they
no,
have, you know,
rats, I know,
yeah, rats.
boring lines. No.
I'm probably thinking about the 1970s when, all the sailing ships would bring a cat on board to stop the rats from
Yeah,
taking over.
yeah. We have some good rat guards, so no rodents on board.
Phew, that's good to know. So, I mean, you did mention at the top of our conversation that you're no longer with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. What are you currently up to?
Yeah, so I only recently finished the race actually.
Mm.
So I've still been quite busy finishing off the final commitments for that. And actually in a few days we have our prize giving. So I'm disappearing off to Italy actually for the prize giving. And then once I'm back from that, hopefully I'm going to be taking some more temporary work for the time being. I'm really keen to go back to sea. I mean, it's only been a few weeks, but I'm already eager to get back. And yeah, for the time being, taking temporary work. And then, yeah, hopefully I will be back in the RFA in due course. But it's just kind of getting my ducks in a row at the moment. There's a lot of things that I want to do and a lot of sectors that I'm interested in and want to learn more about. I'm quite passionate about the environment. And I had the fortune of going to the IMO headquarters a few weeks ago for the International Day of Women in Maritime. And I met some really interesting people there, some really important conversations. So I'm definitely looking to explore things outside of the Officer of the Watch job as well. Obviously, you get a good work to leave ratio with this job, so I can
Yeah.
take other projects as well. And
Oh, that sounds really interesting. But for anybody who doesn't know, IMO stands for the International Maritime Organization. It's the UN body that regulates the global shipping industry, but it also has a huge environmental push, I guess you would call it. It regulates for environmental
yeah,
laws as well for the shipping industry. It's trying to decarbonize, as I think you mentioned earlier, by 2050.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I don't have a technical background, but it's something I really want to explore. And especially now that I've got a bit of a following on my social media platform, use that as well to my benefit and to the benefit of the industry. And yeah, spread some awareness about what's changing in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I follow a group called the Oceans Cleanup. I don't know if you've seen them online. Just some of
Yeah.
the things that they are doing in collecting plastics and other rubbish from the oceans, but also from rivers as well. I just think it's amazing and just really important work.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And there's so many different NGOs and charities. And even actually yesterday at Seaworks, funny, I listened to a podcast the other day on seagrass, which probably doesn't sound all that exciting, but is actually really important for carbon storage in the atmosphere. And in the environment, sorry. And there was a charity there yesterday that was talking more about it. And there are, yeah, lots of people doing really good work, just they haven't had their voices, haven't projected their voices, let's just say. So I'm quite keen to draw attention to some of those organizations. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be amazing. So perhaps sometime in future we'll see some videos more along the environmental line, and I would really look forward to seeing those.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Thank you. Well, India Sims, it's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for joining the Nautilus Pod today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great chat.
Okay, Robert, what did you think about that?
Yeah, what an amazing story. And we did talk a bit at the top about the Ocean Global Race, and you give a bit of a hint to some of the tricky situations, but I thought when India was describing the fisherman, the distress call from that fisherman, and actually when she was talking about, as the fisherman's boat getting closer and closer and closer, and the nerves, because again, don't know what this is, don't know if it's a threat, and I could almost sense the suspension building up myself. I thought that was the, really painting that picture. It's like one of those situations, we've all been there, where we can see something that's about to go tragically wrong, and you just see it coming, and there's just not enough time to do anything about it, but it's about to go really wrong. And I know that didn't, and obviously they did help, but that sense of that anticipation and that nervousness, that tension that builds, I thought that was really, really, she painted that picture really well.
Yeah, she absolutely did. And, this is a bit of a theme that is running through this podcast, isn't it? All the way from our very first episode in series 1, when we spoke to the real Captain Phillips, who was taken hostage in a pirate incident on the Maersk, Alabama. This was a situation where this yacht crew with, few people on board really, were faced with a situation when they didn't know if this person was going to be friend or foe, and had to make some very serious decisions about whether they came to their aid and rescue.
Yeah.
And in the end, they did. And that fisherman's life was saved, really.
Yeah.
And what an experience. What I didn't realise from the online videos, of course, was that there was a second incident after that one, where there was a flotilla of boats that were perhaps a little less benign, a little less friendly, that they also had to deal with. So
yeah, exactly.
It just shows the real life situations that people take when they go to sea.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the other thing that she talked about, that we talked about a bit at the top of this episode, was the RFA, the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, which, again, Helen, you mentioned, has been a bit of a mission for you to try and spread the word about how vital the RFA is. And I think, again, I sort of mentioned at the top, but just to reiterate, how important merchant navy seafarers are to defence and to naval capabilities. I think it's probably something, again, the whole point of this podcast is sea blindness, trying to break down these barriers perhaps that we have to understand in the maritime industry. And I think one of the things that people maybe don't realise is that throughout history, our merchant navy, our merchant seafarers have been really important in times of emergency and in times of crisis, both in terms of the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, who directly support defence, but also, I mean, if we look back to the Falklands, for example, there were a number of P&O vessels, ferry vessels, that were requisitioned by the state. And again, this is something that we talk a lot about at Nautilus, the need to support our merchant seafarers, our merchant navy, not just in terms of commerce and trade, but also in terms of defence and supply chains and all that sort of work as well. And I think highlighting the work of the RFA is really critical to that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I do often kind of talk to non-maritime people about the RFA, and there is a stunning lack of awareness of their very existence. And without them, so for example, the type of work that they can be involved in, it can be a humanitarian aid. They can help when there is, flooding, or if there are hurricanes, particularly in kind of hurricane season, Bermuda, Bahama, that we hear about perhaps on an annual basis. They often go and help with cleanup and restoration. They've been vital to work in Gaza and kind of supporting with food aid and other assistance during that very, very sad war that's broken out in the Middle East there, and many, many other kind of very serious security situation. So without the support of the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, our country's navy would not be able to operate, within these vital operations. So raising awareness of the vital work that our members do for and with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary is certainly something that is close to our hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. And India does such a good job of that as well herself in terms of her own, social media. And obviously what's great about this podcast is that we're able to speak to these people. We're able to highlight it from our side and highlight the work that they're doing as well. And hopefully this does go a long way to highlighting and publicising the work of the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, who as I say, I think probably don't get as much attention, and actually unfairly as well, Helen, because as you highlighted some of that work, the humanitarian assistance, hurricanes, things like that, anti-piracy, anti-drug trafficking, some really complex things. And sometimes we hear on in the mainstream media, and we'll hear that it's the Royal Navy, and actually in many cases it's actually the Royal Fleet Auxiliary who are supporting the Royal Navy, and who do support the Royal Navy, and in many cases are doing this work themselves. So I think as I say, I think helping to break that down and get the word out there about the RFA is really positive.
Yeah, it's really positive. And actually, we can see that there is interest in national defence in the UK public. That was some of the feedback that we got in the Maritime Barometer this year. So we asked the question, what was the primary role of the Merchant Navy? Now, whilst over 52% of the respondents thought it was to do with commercial shipping and trade, which it absolutely is, at the same time, 23%, so that's almost a quarter of respondents believe that it plays a really big role in defending our territorial waters. So, there is that awareness there. We just need to keep driving it home that the Royal Fleet Auxiliary and the Merchant Navy seafarers who work for the Royal Fleet Auxiliary kind of play that dual role.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you for listening and watching another episode of our Off Course pod. If you are a maritime professional working at sea or ashore, you can, of course, join Nautilus International. We'll give you a link to our website in the show notes. We'll also give you a link to that Maritime Barometer survey that I just mentioned. And of course, we'll give you the link to India's social media. And I really do hope that you check those out. So thanks, Robert, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Helen. See you later.